Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 9th of June, and this is Indexer Office Hours 261. Welcome to all of those who are joining us for the first time, but I'd imagine there are a lot of familiar faces, so welcome back. This is the town square, as I always like to say, where graph ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. In case this wasn't clear, this is a conversation, and we do love participation. As Carlos says in the chat there, I love saying that. That is one of my favorite sayings. Today, yeah, we're going to have a very fruitful conversation, so feel free to get involved. If you have any challenges with your microphone, just let me know in the chat box, and I will get that sorted for you. We have the text box as well. And just as a reminder, as Petko said in the in the chat, this is a session that's going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you are concerned about privacy, just bear that in mind. And with that, let's see if anyone else posts anything else in relation to my intro segment. Let's get into today's exciting agenda. How's my toe? Is this directed to me or someone else? I did break my toe, but that was a long time ago, and it's fully recovered if that was a question for me. Okay, let's get the show on the road. So there was a full, yes, there was a full toe IOH. I do remember that. That was a funny one. Okay, well, I'm going to hand over to Carlos for the regularly scheduled repo watch section.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Repo Watch again. So let's start with execution clients for this week. We have a new miner version from Nethermind. This one packs a very wide range of new features, improvements, fixes, so check it out if you're running Nethermind. We have a patch version for Arbitrum Nitro. We are now at 3.10.2, and nothing major was standing out, but should be a quick in-place upgrade, also not very concerning. And lastly, we have more Polygon drama. So there's a new 𝗨𝗀𝗂 v2 version. We're now at 0.8.1. It's a minor bump. And if you're running it, you probably already noticed that you need to upgrade. It's not the first time this has happened, but this was released a week ago, so right after our last IOH, unfortunately. And by the time it was released, the testnet had already hard forked. So they released the version with the block for the hard fork for a MOI post the hard fork itself. And the mainnet hard fork occurs on the very same day it was released. So kind of like small time window. Also not the first time they do this. They seem to be releasing to some select partners. And the public releases are seemingly now sometimes only occurring either with very short notices or even post the hard fork dates. So if you're running Polygon, find your nearest support group because I feel your pain. Now on to consensus-related clients. There's nothing going on this week. On the graph stack, we have a new miner for graph node. So we're now at 0.44. It has a wider array of fixes, but three of the standard features is a new entity cache and some elastic search CLE flags that were removed, some query subgraph logs over GraphQL changes as well. Check it out. And we have a new version, miner as well, from Index Service and Tap Agent. They're both at 2.2.0 now. One of the main features here is advertising deep price via new endpoint. And additionally, Tap Agent also has a smallish fix regarding tap receipts. Lastly, on the Launchpad stack, we have had a few chart updates. So that's GraphNode, Graph Network Indexer, ProxyD, 𝗨𝗀𝗂 v2, Aragon, and Arbitrum Nitro. They all have had releases this week, and they're all currently at the upstream latest stable versions. The only supported shard that still needs an update to the latest upstream version is Nethermind as of now. And that's it for this week. So I'm handing over to Vlad.
Thanks, Carlos. Were you gonna say something? Sorry. Okay, I guess not. Okay, for Protocol Watch, we have a couple of things to cover, starting as always with forum governance. We have, it's one of the same topics as last week, which is separate with Rebel bucket from fully thought delegation tokens. There was an interesting discussion about the latest PR for changes on the contracts related to that. Thomas and 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗧 were discussing those things. And the TLDR version is the issue with withdrawable bucket for fully thought delegation tokens is more of an off-chain problem, not an on-chain problem. So the PR was closed in favor of off-chain solutions, which imply that you essentially need to fix those calculations on your end because they are not really fixable on chain, and they introduce a bunch of issues if you even try to do so. I think that's a good enough TLDR, but I see Thomas writing there, so yeah. Okay, fixes for Graph Explorer have been merged already. It's going to be deployed soon. That's great. So yeah, that's the TLDR for that thread. Then there's Substreams Mid Horizon announcing SDSCE. This is, if you're following the discussions in the Indexer channel, this is the Substreams Data Service Community Edition, which was released by 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃 based on the work that we've done with Streaming Fast regarding the implementation for a stack for Substreams Data Service to work. Essentially, the stack is mostly used to enable payments that go through GraphTally and get settled on chain. But there were a few things missing, mainly the contracts and stuff. 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃 kind of like took it upon himself, worked on that, work for contracts and deployed a community edition version of that, which is, if I'm not mistaken, live already. If you're interested in any of those details, it's linked in the agenda as always. For forum research, we don't have any new updates. For the contracts repository, there are a few updates to some of the PRs. I think most of them are related to rewards eligibility Oracle, like the JP88 testnet deployment and the mainnet upgrade draft. And there are some of those that are just dependency bumps, and again, the update to the unwithdrawn or fully thought delegation tokens that was closed. No new updates for network subgraphs, so that's pretty much it for Protocol Watch. I'm going to be handing over to 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃 now.
Awesome. We have Chris with us today, who's going to be sharing an announcement. So without further ado, I'll hand the mic over to Chris.
Thank you, 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃. Happy to be here with you all. And as 𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃 has already mentioned to a few indexers in Discord, this will be our last episode of IOH that GraphOps is hosting, and we're going to be handing over the venue to the foundation, who will continue operating it moving forward. I do have a sad announcement today, which is that unfortunately our funding from the Graph Foundation has come to an end, and this has impacted us significantly. So several of our team members are looking for new roles. I have no doubt they will be enormously valuable assets wherever they land. But significantly, this does mean we are unable to continue making core dev contributions within the Graph ecosystem. We will continue to operate our indexer, and we will continue to be a supportive ecosystem participant, and we hope very much for the success of the Graph. I would like to thank Nick and the foundation team for their partnership over the last 4 years. I'm very proud of the many work streams we have had an impact on, and the quality engineering and infrastructure work that we have shipped. I'd also like to sincerely thank the GraphOps team for their tremendously thoughtful and diligent work over the years. You all have really been the champions of our progress and the contributions that we've made to the graph. It's been an absolute pleasure working alongside you all. And then finally, to the indexers who've shared this journey, thank you for all your time, your effort, your engagement. It's been a really special community to be a part of, and I hope that the best days for us lie ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Abel. It's Nick here. I know I'm not a regular here in IOH, but if it's okay with you, could I just share a few thoughts from the foundation's perspective here?
Yeah, of course. Great to see you. Please.
Well, thank you, Abel. Okay, so first and foremost, much love to the GraphOps team, and I really appreciate the announcement today and the way Chris and the team has handled this situation. I do want to echo everything Chris said. I mean, the GraphOps team is unquestionably one of the most talented teams that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and most anybody that's been around here understands sort of that OG quality of the team and the contributions they've made. So I just want to recognize the efforts of GraphOps. And in the context of IOH, not to get too personal here, but for those of you that have been around for a while, you know that IOH origins reside with 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪, a friend of mine, and I know a friend of Chris and many of you. And for those of us that really care about Jim and the legacy and the work he contributed, number one, to see GraphOps step in when Jim stepped down to continue the legacy of IOH in the spirit of what that indexer community and that indexer contribution should look like was amazing. And I think Jim was always proud and pleased to see what Abel and Chris and the whole GraphOps team did with IOH to evolve it. And just want to express again my gratitude to them for that, and our commitment at the foundation level to, in the form of Orion here and Pedro, who's not here, to continue shepherding and stewarding the IOH vision. And hopefully we can step in and fill these big shoes. But Chris is a friend of mine, and I have so much respect for him and his team, and certainly the fact that the formalities of this relationship are concluding is very bitter and really troubling. And so, given that, I just want to say thank you, love to each of you, and appreciate everything you did. I hope you felt heard. I hope you felt seen. But very grateful to this team, and thank you for everything.
Very kind words from you both. Very much to appreciate you both sharing perspectives there. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we're definitely building on the shoulders of giants, as you mentioned, Nick. Jim, who started this initiative, we're very fortunate to him. Very grateful. It's been fun. It's been really, really fun. Just the banter, the good times, the soundboards, the pronouncing of names, the silly jokes, the serious debates, the resolution of topics, and just consistent ritual every single week, coming back here again and again and again. I'm really, really going to miss this. I'm going to stay involved in the community, of course. I'm going to be handing over the baton to Slim and the foundation. So I'm looking forward to joining these as a participant. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. It's a hell of a ride. 5 years, I believe it's been. So what a run it's been. Okay. Now, thank you very much. Appreciate the round of applause there. So yeah, of course, it's been my pleasure, Chris. Thank you for facilitating and allowing me to host. It's been an absolute pleasure. Um, okay, let's get into the agenda for the final episode of Indexer Office Hours. We have the good fortune of having Rem, who's with us today, who has some exciting updates about REO that I know many of you have been asking about. So Rem, without further ado, feel free to grab the mic and share some updates.
Sure. So I guess the main update is that we have actually deployed what I hope is a candidate that might go through to production onto testnet. So I'm hoping we can get testing coordinated on it quite quickly, and we will definitely be hoping to get some. Maybe if anyone else here is interested in not just testing the rewards eligibility Oracle side and the contracts in general, but also being involved in the indexing agreement side, that'll be very much appreciated. And I just want to say also, Abel, we're all going to miss you. So I hope the work that we still end up delivering is it's a tribute to the contribution that you have made, which is very much appreciated.
Thank you. That's very kind. I'm gonna miss IOH very dearly. It's been such a core part of my week. You know, the highlight of my week. So yeah, I'm gonna miss everyone here. I'm gonna definitely stay in touch and continue to join these as a participant. But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, Rem, and thank you so much for the update there as well. Okay, amazing. Now we have the good fortune of opening up a discussion. So just going through the Indexer channel and noticed there's been a few questions and things that people, Dips is so close, it's been a long time coming. Hell yeah. That'd be exciting to see come through as well. That would be awesome. Petco, he just updated. REO is going to come very soon. Testing is happening right now. You want to put your hand up for testing? It's okay. Rem, I'm sure would be happy to facilitate. So yeah, definitely around the corner for sure. So yeah, as I'm saying, a few folks in the chat, in the Indexer chat, have been speaking and looking for some updates and wanted to discuss various things. And I thought, why not host a discussion here to try and clear the air, bridge the gap between different teams and people in the ecosystem. So we have the good fortune of having a few folks from the 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗧 team here with us today to discuss some of the things that we spoke about in the chat there. And I wanted to just kind of open up a conversation just to kind of like maybe for the team to share some updates on AMP and for anyone to ask any questions and maybe just have an open discussion and, you know, build the bridge because, you know, conversation is the best way to hash things out and figure stuff out. So, yeah, I've kept it deliberately very open. So either the 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗧 team, if you guys want to just step in and say a few words and we can open up a broader discussion, or if anyone has any questions, you can maybe post them in the chat. We'll just unmute the mic. We can kind of freestyle and keep this open. So, what do you guys think? How do you want to navigate this discussion? It's basically just an extension from these conversations that have been happening in the Indexer channel. So, yeah, how do we want to do this? See a few people typing in the chat, but Pablo's unmuted. Go ahead. I'm not sure if it's me, but I can't hear Pablo. That's a sick beat, Pablo. Super insightful. Yeah, there seems to be some sort of audio issue, Pablo. So let me just check if you've got the correct permissions. I think you should do, but it's yeah, you have all the relevant permissions, but it's some 8-bit game noises, as Chris was saying.
Abel, maybe while can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, loud and clear. So maybe you can step in while he's figuring out the audio issue.
Sure. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
reminded of these movie previews I'm seeing of Disclosure Day when all these people are speaking alien. I think it sounds a little bit like what Pablo's doing. So I don't know if this is Disclosure Day within the graph or not. But I appreciate hearing some of those beats or that alien speak. I'm here today also by virtue of a lot of the conversation that's been happening in Discord and representing my foundation team. I'm happy to do my best today to share any information or context that would be beneficial. I do want, if I could, just to say I've read back through a lot of those posts and I'm not particularly proud of some of the way I responded in there. So I want to publicly apologize if some of my posts came off overly emotional or a little defensive. And I do recognize that that's the case. I'm fortunate enough to get a ton of feedback on that matter. So I want to own that and take responsibility. I think, yeah, when it comes to my team, I get a little defensive, a little emotional. I understand our role within the ecosystem and mine in particular, and I'm certainly willing to take ownership of my mistakes and answer any questions here today about the foundation perspective, but wanted to sort of start with an apology for any posts that offended anybody or came off the wrong way. Never my intent, but clearly a mistake I made. So I do apologize.
Amazing. Yeah. A lot of respect there for your words there, Nick. I'm sure it's always good to just clear the air there. So yeah, thank you, and also thank you for stepping in while Pablo is figuring out the audio as well. How's the audio, Pablo? Can you try unmuting now?
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, amazing, awesome. Free to,
Okay, that was weird.
Yeah, but I'm glad it's working.
So I don't have very well formed thoughts. So maybe just a few things to kind of continue the conversation. So I think we see there's frustration or concerns about how communication has flowed or not flowed in the past several months and maybe years. I think that's very fair feedback. We are. So I want to start by saying we are taking that on, and we do want to be more active in the conversations going forward. The reasons we've been sort of quiet, I think, are well known. They're not an excuse, but just the facts is we've been very focused on building. This has been kind of a heads down time for Edge and Node, trying to figure out what we're building, how we're building it, what are the products that are going to come out. And a lot of that is still kind of fluctuating, I think, as we kind of learn from what we build and the conversations that we have. And there's people from our team that are having a lot of very interesting conversations on kind of the enterprise institutional side. And then we're also working on the AI side. So just wanted to say this, that we hear that frustration, but also that I think it's a quite pivotal moment in the graph. There's graph ops leaving as core devs, and in general, like a lot of the things that made the ecosystem work in a certain way recently are being kind of reevaluated. It's been very hard to ship products as an ecosystem with the way the core dev system was built. It was a pretty interesting experiment in how we can, attempt to do decentralized coordination for protocol building and product building. But I think at this point, after several years, it's become clear that it doesn't work to build products that have product market fits. And that means we can't find protocol market fits if we can't build those products. So we are working with the foundation, trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of keep moving forward. And there's like it involves shifts in how we work together. And I think that's kind of the key thing, and us trying to figure out, okay, how do we ship things that people want to use that are based on the network, that have the network actually producing value in ways that, you know, someone actually is willing to pay for those things. And that, I think, is going to be the only real path forward for the graph. And that has been our focus in many ways over the past several months. So I'm hoping we'll be able to share a lot more in the coming weeks, months. But yeah, just wanted to open with that. I might have more to say as the conversation goes, but I don't want to monopolize.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those words there. Yeah, appreciate you giving the context, because yeah, you know, a lot of people I'm sure are not privy to all of the things that are happening internally. So I appreciate you sharing that context there. So yeah, guys, this is an open conversation. I basically want to extend all the conversations that happened in the Indexer channel. So let's keep it going either in the chat or via voice. I see a few people typing, so feel free to ask questions and we can hash stuff out. You know, it's better to speak about this in real time as opposed to going back and forth facing. So yeah, let's take it away, guys. Okay, Vince has posted something in the chat. And it reads as, my issue is not that Edgenode my issue is not Edgenode being heads down figuring out their place in a product market fit, selection, building, etc. Mine is permissionlessness. It's not what was sold, or maybe my own perception of what it meant. No outside devs are able to graduate to producing services to the network. So if Edgenode is heads down, the entire network is. What are your thoughts, guys, on this?
I think that's fair feedback, and we had a bit of back and forth in the chat before. I think it makes sense that there's a bit of confusion. I think part of it is how Horizon has been communicated. I've been quite vocal about it, but maybe not in these venues, about Horizon, like the fact that it's a platform that allows us to permissionlessly add services does not mean that that's a winning strategy. I don't think that the way the graph strives and survives and kind of is very successful is by adding a lot of services from permissionless, like third-party or ecosystem contributors. I think those things help for sure. And I don't think we want to stop any of those things. And I think if there are things that kind of actually produce value and have potential customers and get traction and kind of are aligned with what the graph as a whole is aiming towards, then it definitely makes sense to have a path for graduation, I guess, there. I don't know how much we want to formalize that. Like if there needs to be a governance process for that, or and I think this would be my preference, that we're more like startup-y and actually see, like, if someone comes with an idea and wants to kind of bring it in some way, then we have a conversation and we figure out how to make it work if it makes sense. But there's been, I think, some people in the ecosystem that have pushed more for the idea of Horizon as this kind of permissionless platform, and then the whole point of the graph is being this platform for permissionless innovation and adding a lot of data services. And I've been pretty against that for a while. We had some, like in previous core DevOps sites, we've discussed this, and in general agreed that like the idea of the permissionless platform as a product was kind of as if we were going to compete with EigenLayer, which didn't seem like a good idea, and then even EigenLayer pivoted away from that approach. So today I think it's an even worse idea than it was a few years ago. So this is not to say that the permissionless contributions aren't welcome. It's the opposite. I think like anyone who wants to contribute should be welcome, and we should find ways to make those contributions have impact, right? But I think there's like this general misunderstanding that because Horizon is permissionless, then the whole point of it is just to have a lot of data services being added. That's not, and obviously this is my personal opinion, but I don't think that was a purpose. I don't think that's a winning strategy. I don't think that's what we should be focusing on. I think what we should be focusing on is like finding 1, 2 killer products that actually bring in the traction. And yeah, if people want to contribute and they don't ask for funding to contribute, then I think, yeah, that's super welcome, and we could find ways to make it work. But I think that the first thing that needs to happen is this thing that is happening now, that is these conversations about how we organize a structure of the kind of the institution, the organizations that make part of the graph, so that we are actually not just incentive aligned, but organizationally well set up for success. And I think that means a lot more centralization in operations and decision making, so that we can actually have a proper decentralized network, but that creates value. I don't think there's a real decentralized permissionless way of creating that value at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say that does make sense, but I guess I would have to heavily disagree on that, because I know in the past, like you have mentioned, core dev teams have different visions or different alignments, and that's caused a lot of meeting or death by meetings or death by discussion. But I do feel like, there is only one Theo, there is only one Ford, and I know that things have been talked about where it's like, we're working on this, so we don't have time for this. And while that might be a valuable product, we don't have time for it because we have to focus on this to get this done, because we only have, so many people. To where I don't know why we can't be more hands-off approach in, like, say, if we wanted an RPC service or a Firehose as a service. Those things are kind of just sitting idly by, when we could have a decentralized team take on that task, and no one, Edge and Node doesn't have to deal with it, besides if it graduated, I guess, putting it on the Graph Explorer and integrating it into the ecosystem, giving it more an official badge to be used as a service, rather than the only way you'd know that there's an RPC service on the network is if Petco told you. So it's not really backed or felt officially. So I don't think any real, app layer is going to take on that and be like, oh yeah, there's just this side service that's not really supported in any way. I think that hands-off approach unlocks a ton of leverage. There are people that want to build these services there, and they benefit from getting paid that in the gateway, taking a cut from that. So I don't know why we have to be so hands-on. If there is a market fit, like someone launches a Firehose as a service and tons of people are using it, I don't see why there has to be so many hands in the pie. Just let the team that developed it launch it, and then put it on the network, or well, give it an official badge of graduation, whatever that means, whatever that defining term means, whether it's security or whatever needs to happen to get launched on there. But if people are using it, I think that's a pretty good fit. And then Edge and Node doesn't have to have all their hands in the pie to developing the service, catering to it, supporting it, dealing with all of that, back end slop of, people having to deal with that product and supporting it. The team that developed it should be on that. And then if they, really drop the ball on supporting that product, then that product should go away. If there's no use, that product should go away. But I think that the free market should take care of that. Not saying that any
that assumes
should go on the network.
That assumes a few things, and I think, it's a reasonable stance, but in practice, what you mentioned of just adding it on Explorer or things like that, these are not things that are easy, especially like if the idea is, okay, let's actually build a product that is cohesive, that is coherent, that has a narrative, that actually appeals to a specific user persona. Like all of these things are not so easily matched with, oh, there's this external contribution that let's just graduate it to be somewhere inside the product where people can find it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just like, I want to make it clear that that's not straightforward. That's not like a few hours of someone from Edge and Node putting it in and then it's done. These are things that take time, that like require effort from Edge and Node Foundation, whoever. So yes, it's true. That's a lot less effort than if we wanted to build the Substreams data service. But then I think it's a matter of prioritization. Do we spend the maybe 100 person hours to like incorporate an external service into a product and figure out exactly where it fits in the design and the product and the narrative and everything? Or do we focus on the bets that we think are going to actually win and take us to the scale that we want? And this, like at the protocol level, the innovation is permissionless. At the product level, it will always require some time and effort to integrate things. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just like, I want us to acknowledge that it's easier said than done to actually be able to allow these external products to, or third party or ecosystem products to kind of fit within the story and within the product. Yeah, and again, this is sort of it still feels based on the assumption that the thing that brings us success is adding these other services. I don't think that it is, and I think like we have nothing against Substreams data service or a JSON RPC data service. Actually, JSON RPC is within our plans. It's something that we think makes a lot of sense, especially as a provider step for an AMP data service and for higher level products. But how we do prioritization, like and how we kind of find the time to incorporate these into the products, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky.
Is there a way to give teams a power to take that on as well? To have a more modular based design to where they can take on that front end product fit and make it more modular to where that's a possible
This
thing
is
to
like sort of the trap that we've fallen into over the years with core devs is like, hey, we're having trouble integrating this data service. Can ENN help us? Okay, this is hard. Can you make it more modular so we can integrate this ourselves? Okay, over the years we've done a lot of that and we ended up with Horizon. So that's like the protocol level permissionlessness. And I'd love to find like some sort of area on the spectrum where the community felt like they could contribute there and build things and get cooking and run with it, but also not make it so Edge and Node has to integrate everything into our product, and we don't have to continue to like find ways to make everything modular and everything pluggable so that people can build. Like we need to find ways to focus on the products we want to build right now.
And maybe the solution to that is not to have things on the graph.com, but rather to have like external products, and maybe there's a way to surface them within the graph.com, have a like an ecosystem product or something like that. But then rather than running these things in the Graph Explorer, or the Graph Studio or whatever, these are separate products managed by different teams. So if people want to go to Lodestar to consume the Substreams data service or whatever, I think that's great, and like we support them, and like maybe find ways to make it work with the narrative and the marketing and everything. But that's yeah, I think, I mean, I would support having that kind of conversations, but I think that's different than expecting that we'll definitely find a way to make arbitrary data services fit within what I think should be the core products, which I think should be, and that's where we're still trying to figure out like how much of that is done by the foundation, Edge Node, whatever.
Yeah, and I do think like we were discussing in the chat or whatever, that there does need to be a process and a framework for that to be successful, because I don't think we've really ever had that. It's more kind of like, hey, services, yeah. I think if there is a framework, a well-written framework for people to build against, because if someone has a good framework and checklist to build upon, I think that decreases that variability a lot. If you have a defined framework and what you need to build upon, and how you need to build it, and the way you need to build it, and metrics you need to meet, and all these other things and yeah, a framework would take time to build, but no one really truly knows the framework besides the Edge and Node. Um, but if we had a framework of like, here's, with anything, here's the framework of what I have to build within, and here's how I have to build it, and here's the, check boxes I need to meet to even get discussed about being a product. Or even having a list of products saying, Edge and Node saying, hey, we think these are product market fits. We think JSON RPC is a product market fit. We think that Substreams fits within this. Firehose as a service fits within this narrative. If other people want to build it and literally take the burden off of Edge and Node, I don't see why we don't let that happen.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think, but that again, yeah, the last part of what you said sounds kind of like an it's not RFC but RFP process and something like that. Sorry, I got distracted by. Where are the contradictions, Chris? I'm saying I don't think we should prioritize a product like arbitrary data services in a product suite. I don't think it's a winning strategy. I still think because we allow permissionless innovation, it makes sense to find what's the lowest effort way to kind of support that and support people in the ecosystem doing that. It's, yeah, I don't see a contradiction in that.
I mean, I just feel contradictions in the messaging. Like, I think Edge and Node is very much a critical actor presently on the path to making any of these versions of the future happen. Maybe the graph.com should be operated by the foundation and, kind of things should be structured in a way that Edge and Node is less of a critical actor on that path. But as long as Edge and Node is, what you guys believe about what the right path forward is really important in terms of what can get done. And so if you're saying like you think there should be a path for third-party data services to come to market in the Graph product suite, you can't also be saying that you don't think that's a winning strategy and you don't, in the prioritization of Edge and Node's resources, like you don't want to put effort towards them. Like it has to be one or the other.
Why does it have to be one or the other? We're trying to share our strategy while also not block other people if you want to build. Like, that's the contradiction, right? Like,
I mean, I support a version of the future where, there's a degree of independence from Edge and Node in terms of the Graph's product suite and brand, but that feels like the opposite of the future that that Edge and Node is actively trying to manifest. Right? Like you guys have spoken about how you want to go into startup mode. You want to focus all efforts on AMP. You're presently critical to the protocol and like the graph.com as a venue. So like there just isn't a path that allows other contributors to meaningfully deliver data services to the network where you are not an important part of making that happen. And you're also saying that you don't believe it's a good use of your time to make it happen.
Yes. So I think what should happen is the graph should go a lot more, and this is personal opinion. I don't know, exactly how many people at Edgenode agree with this. I think the graph should go back to startup mode. I think that means, and I think the best placed entity to do that is Edgenode, quickly shipping products, and it's not necessarily focusing on AMP, but rather products built on AMP. Quickly iterating, quickly finding product market fit, and shipping those things. I think if people want to ship other products and they want to use the network's permissionless contracts layer and reuse our open source code and things like that, then they are very welcome to do that. And all of this, I think, could bring some value to the graph down the line. But I don't think the focus as an ecosystem should be on allowing that or making it super easy to have that permissionless contributions, because I don't think that's what's going to give us the winning hand. I don't think that's what's going to make a difference. That doesn't mean I want to preclude that or want to stop it. And I think it makes sense to, if there are people who really want to contribute things, then yes, let's give them space. I'm not going to go and stop them.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, what the main blockers we're alluding to here. We've talked about putting things on the graph.com. So basically getting better distribution and having it clear that it's a graph promoted product. But otherwise, as far as actual technical blockers, I think we've done a lot of work to try to get rid of them. And if there's others, please let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the graph.com is a major point of distribution, and personally, I think some of the trouble that the ecosystem has run into has been the fragmentation that has resulted from less of a first-class integration of other data services into the graph.com. So I do think that is, it's a really important asset for the ecosystem, and any data service that is a first-class data service should have a first-class integration into the graph.com. Also, a lot of the protocol's core development and operations have lived inside of Edgenode. And I think I don't mean to undermine the amazing work that the Edgenode contract team has done on the protocol, and to ship everything that we have. But if there is an intention to create a pathway or contributors to, in a way that it is not blocked by Edgenode's cooperation or resourcing, then it makes sense to me for things like the graph.com as the shelling point of the brand and the distribution channel, as well as core protocol development and operations, to be something that is stewarded independently of Edgenode. That kind of takes Edgenode out of the critical path for third-party contributors. And I would say another blocker is funding, right? It's clear that there are other data services. I think the most obvious example to point out is Substreams, which, is achieving very impressive rates of month-over-month growth and traction within the Web3 developer community. It's clear that there's demand for this type of thing. And I don't think, it's hard for me to square the stance that, the ecosystem and the foundation should fund AMP, as the primary bet. And if other independent contributors want to donate their work to the protocol, that's great. They can do that. Like that doesn't seem to be in the spirit of the values of a decentralized ecosystem. And so personally, I think that if there is an expectation that third-party contributors will bring their work and contributions to the protocol, that there is commensurate funding for that, just in the same way that Edge and Node would want, their own contributions to be compensated.
So Nick, Chris, I mean, that's your opinion. It's valid as an opinion. I disagree. I don't think that's the path that will make the graph successful. You're proposing something where the graph becomes like Homer's website with 100 different things, and it's just like, okay, there's all of this permissionless innovation, the decentralized ethos or whatever, and then we are still targeting the small percentage of Web3 developers that don't care about the graph anymore. This is a path to death. We are on the valley of death. We are a startup that hasn't found product market fit and became a protocol very, very quickly. Tried to push this decentralized ethos and narrative way beyond where it made sense. And I've been a part of that because I'm a strong believer in decentralization, permissionlessness, all of the values of Web3. But we kept going with that approach when the market was showing us that it doesn't work. If we're trying to fund everything under the sun because we think it might be a bet that works, then we're just going to die. It's not going to work. We need like focused execution. Like the main structure that has been known to create value in the history of the world is like the startup, the enterprise, the focused bet, the single team moving quickly and trying to create something that has value. That's why I don't think the path of permissionless innovation, everyone can bring in new products into the graph and the graph becomes this like marketplace. We're not Amazon. We don't have the scale to become a marketplace of data services because there's not enough people who care about blockchain data services for this to ever be successful. It's just never going to work.
Well, I would say that the incentive isn't there. Why would anyone care about building on it? Because it's dead in the water to start. As of right now, like why would anybody? There's not enough builders, but you don't even give a marketplace for that to even happen. It's dead in the water.
Try to repeat the core dev idea that we've been trying for the last 5 years. Like
the core dev idea.
We've been putting like an insane amount of energy and time into helping these other core devs. They put in a lot of work. There's a lot of funding. Like we're going to try a new thing. We're going to try to stay focused on our product.
But that's not all.
You're asking us to RFP before we have PMF. Like what startup in the world RFPs core development when like before they have the things that allow you to say you're out of the valley of death? It never worked in the history of the world. It will never work. It's like trying to act like we're the United Nations when we're actually a startup that is dying. And we want to help not just keep it alive but make it extremely successful.
What is the reason that not a single service has come alive in 5 years? That's the reason we're dead.
Yes, it's the organizational structure. Like obviously, I guess there's probably a lot of mistakes along the way, but my diagnosis is we've had an organizational structure that wasn't set up for success. We have council that makes decisions on some things. We have a foundation that stewards certain things. We've had several core devs without clear alignment, and like it's not, a winning structure. It's not something that can actually create the value. There's a mix of things. We started in a world where Web3 was gonna eat the world, and we were building on the assumption that everyone was going to use subgraphs or any other data services that we built. And the graph would stay extremely relevant because all of our consumers would care so much about decentralization because everyone was building dApps. when the graph was shipped, dApps were all the rage. It's like decentralized, everything. Obviously, the front end needs to be decentralized, and then the way you read the data from the blockchain needs to be decentralized. And like that was kind of the core assumption, that the world was going to be decentralized. It's going to work on Web3, and therefore everyone's going to use the graph. And then all of these centralized indexers came out, and people were consuming that. And we tried to like push the narrative of decentralization way too far. We built things in a way that didn't quite fit for the market, and there's some acknowledgement of like bad product design there, I think, or bad. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but having things like people making transactions to deploy a subgraph is something that doesn't make sense, I think, in the current world. So there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of things, but I think the core thing is it's very hard to ship a product as a ecosystem if that ecosystem is fragmented, if we can't agree on what's the best path forward, and everything we do needs to go through all of these committees before we can actually launch it.
I guess one thing I'm also curious about, like we have the graph.market, which has token API, substreams, firehose, and subgraphs. Why are those three other things not able to be participated in by indexers? Why aren't those things pushed? Why aren't those things marketed? Why aren't indexers able to provide substreams or firehose or token API as a service?
You would have to ask the teams that built those things.
That's not us. Like we didn't build those. We tried to support those teams and bringing those to network for many years.
So this is a core dev breakdown in why those things are not.
We can talk about, if you want to ask about a specific one, we can talk about the things that happened along the way that didn't get it there. But we were not building those data services ourselves at Edgenode.
But those services work. It's just no indexers are able to participate in them.
Yeah, but we have nothing to do with those services other than we try to help them and explain what it means to launch them on the network.
The network, they didn't focus on making them runnable by indexers. There's like a lot of extra things besides building a proof of concept data service to make it really work well on the network. It's a lot of work. It is hard.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand like why those things are like quasi on the network and not like indexers aren't able to supply any. Like I know Substreams is making a killing, and I don't know why.
It's exactly what I've been. I've been trying to say is the core dev ecosystem is not a structure that works to launch products into the protocol that works. The only, I think, Edgenode has been uniquely adamant about bringing things on the network, trying to explain to other core devs how to do it. Like it's just like the coordination has been extremely hard on that. And this is not to like try to blame any particular core dev. And there's also maybe the argument that some things need to be tested on the market for PMF before you do the work of like building it into the protocol. But we've actually been one of the strongest voices saying, hey, you are not really on the network yet. Here's how you can do it. These are the requirements. These are the things that need to happen for your service to be runnable by indexers and actually, a decentralized service that runs on the network. We have been taking that position from the beginning, which is why now it's surprising that there's this sort of lack of trust on whether we want to bring AMP on the network or not. Of course, we want to bring AMP on the network. Like we built the thing that allows other things to be, deployed on the network. Why wouldn't we want to use it to, deploy other things?
So I get AMP and I get your position. But I also get like, okay, these things are not on the network right now. They're quasi on the network. How do we get them there? How do we get them over the line? How do we fix this? Because they're already there. They're 80% there. So how do we fix it?
I mean, if someone wants to put in development effort to do that, then I think that would be great. I don't think we should fund those things because I don't think those are the things that are going to make us win.
Okay, well, that's so we need to fund them, but you don't think we should fund them? How does that work?
No, I don't think we need to fund them. I think like if someone in this permissionless world wants to, build the data services, build the integrations for those things, which their developers haven't done in the last several years, then they're welcome to do it. I think the focus for the graph should be different. I think we should build products on top of AMP to target institutional consumers and to target AI agent consumers. And we should find verticals where those things make sense. And we should build those products and iterate very quickly until we find PMF. And then as we do that, we should bring the services behind those things to the network, starting by AMP and maybe RPC. That's what I think is the path forward. I think everything else is going to end up being noise. Maybe substreams, if they're getting some enterprise traction, then it makes sense to kind of put some effort into bring it in and find a way to make it work. But I don't think the focus and the funding from this ecosystem should go into those things, because I don't think those are the things that make us win.
You can't get them done without funding.
Then we don't get them done. Oh, I mean,
So they're just dead.
Edco seems to want to build those data services, and he's welcome to do it. But I don't think we should, be spending resources. Like startups do this all the time. They make bets, they see if they work or not, and then they stop the ones that don't work. They focus on the things that do work. I don't think it's been so many years with these things running. They haven't been brought on the network. Then maybe it's time to make a decision and say, let's focus on other things. Now, if whoever developed these data services or someone else wants to do the integrations for these things to be properly on the network, okay, so be it. But I don't think the graph, and I don't think Agent Node, I don't think the foundation should focus on those things.
Okay,
obviously,
so
I don't control either of these entities, but
so just hypothetically, if someone took one of these services that's quasi on the network and took the time and effort to get it past the finish line, does it ever go on the graph.com?
Maybe we can have that conversation. Yes, I don't again, to be clear, all of this is my personal opinion. I have no real power on any of this. I don't think our focus should be on developing these things. If someone does it and they want to bring it into the graph.com, then I think, yes, we should have a conversation about how to do it in a way that fits the narrative that hopefully we start building from now on.
Because I think we need a clear, aligned path. So you're not going to have anyone seriously take that on if it's like, well, maybe we'll talk about it. Like there needs to be a clear, defined path.
But what I mean is, if someone wants to do it and they want to talk to us about that and the foundation and define the path forward, then let's do it before they start the work. I think that's fine. But yeah, what I'm saying is, it makes no sense to have an RFP process, GIP process, all of these governance processes that make us extremely slow. If someone wants to ship a product and they want to integrate into the graph, let's chat and let's see how we can make it work.
What's the foundation and council's view on this?
Well, I don't know how long Index or office hours goes. It's been a while since I've attended, but are we good on time? I don't know if I'm going to open up a can or close a can or whatever I'm going to do here, but I'm happy to answer that question.
Open all the cans.
Yeah, I mean, it's normally an hour, but this is an important discussion, so I'm happy to make space for this.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best to speak for my colleagues at the foundation. As I said earlier, I really care about these people. So if I make a misstep that misrepresents the view of my team, then I'll take responsibility for that. That said, this conversation and sort of the complexity of it and the constraints of it and the existential nature of it, whether you believe me or not, ever since I took over my role replacing Eva, I have swam in this part of the ocean for a year and a half. And I've probably not done a great job representing that publicly. There's some compelling logic as to why you wouldn't necessarily go out in public and say what you're swimming in and all these different complexities. But I've spent a ton of time on these topics, and so have my colleagues. And it isn't first of all, these are great points being raised here. Any sensible business person, I think, would see that the major themes we're pulling on here are the right questions to be asking. Some of the constraints that become problematic are, all of us are here on June 9th, 2026, trying to solve a problem that has baked in constraints that we inherited from sort of the inception of the graph. And so what I mean by that is the formalities in the relationships between the foundation and the council, the foundation and core dev teams, budget decisions that happened years ago and sort of represent either sunk costs or money well spent, depending, I guess, on your view on it. So within those constraints and the incredible learning curve that I personally had to undergo, it has been a lot of robust discussion. I hate to say it, but yeah, a lot of things are happening behind the scenes, whether it be between the foundation and the council or different core dev teams to try to navigate these types of problems. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody on this call that the foundation made some decisions that are now quite evident when I came into my role. So one of the decisions we made is we worked with the council. We did a in-depth strategic study of the industry and the graph and where we're positioned within the industry. And it became pretty clear that like a subgraph focused niche business probably wasn't an incredibly attractive position to win. And that a lot of the competitors that showed up after, the graph established a wonderful first mover advantage, a lot of those competitors were either leaving that niche subgraph focused business or figuring out ways to expand on it, ranging from like just good old fashioned discoverability all the way down to bundled services. So one of the conclusions of this strategic analysis was we can't be in the quote unquote subgraph business and expect to sort of reach the full potential of what we all signed up for. Another conclusion that was really informed from the foundation perspective was the multi-core dev model just wasn't working. So Pablo's said that a couple times, and I think other here have either implied that or have come to know that, but it doesn't work. And operationally, it's incredibly problematic. I do really enjoy working with the core dev teams. I've enjoyed working with the leads, and there's people on this call today that are from the core dev teams. They're good people. They're sharp teams, but it is fact that each of them sort of define their role as what a core dev is and how they participate in the ecosystem differently. And by virtue of that, it became very clear to me as team lead at the foundation and working with the council that we weren't going to be able to drive alignment among these teams. It wasn't possible. Maybe with a fresh opportunity we could have, but we were taking on a lot of legacy debt in those relationships, some of which ranged from just good old fashioned priorities and objectives all the way down to personality and sort of personnel disagreements. And so it became very clear that sort of saving and driving that multi-core dev model forward was not possible for all the reasons I just said, and some that I didn't. But there was also a financial component. Was it possible to fund these teams to the extent that was done in the past? And if you just do a quick Google search or go on thegraph.com and read the blog announcements, you can get out your calculator and figure out how much money went out the door to fund these teams. And if you know anything about the way the foundation is funded and our operating model, you would realize that that's just not financially viable, even if we could drive alignment. So that came out of that strategic analysis. So we started working on these types of problems very early on, and we had a lot of constraints. We made the decision that we weren't going to renew core dev teams at the conclusion of their contracts, but that we would be open to, as a foundation team, we would be open to finding ways to keep them within the ecosystem and making contributions. And that puts a little bit of burden on them, because take a team like GraphOps, for example. As was noted today, we're parting ways in that formal core dev agreement. They have to make decisions. They have pets to feed, mortgages to pay, a whole host of things. And if the funding that they enjoyed before their contract concluded is greatly reduced, or the scope is changed, or whatever, they have to make an independent decision about what they can do. And it's a math game, and it's a little bit of a priority game. But clearly, when you look at Pinax, GraphOps, Streaming Fast, and on down through the list, these are great teams, and none of this is performance evaluation. It's just a little bit of like, what are your priorities and what's worth your time, and what can we do to kind of keep you engaged? So, noting early on that we weren't going to renew core devs because we couldn't pay those checks anymore, and operationally the surface area was just too broad anymore, the foundation took the lead on creating a roadmap. So we tried a couple things. I don't know if I'll say those things today, but I don't know if there's reason why I shouldn't. I just don't want to like open a whole bunch of different things. But we tried a couple things to kind of say, well, what would be a good product thesis and in a non-multi-core dev model? And at the end of the day, a lot of those things just didn't work out. So we, as a foundation team, coalesced. We worked for week over week for several months to come up with a roadmap. The community was hungry for it. We knew it was a new era from the perspective of like the core devs would be slowly exiting that core dev formal role. And so what was going to be the roadmap? So we published it in February. We spent, 3 sessions at the council level showing them what our roadmap thesis was, what the product thesis was. We got a lot of feedback. There were people that sort of thought there were holes in the roadmap, and there's people that thought it was the most sensible thing to do. Looking back on that, I don't think I personally led our team super effectively. I don't think I sort of sold the roadmap and some of the work we were doing incredibly well. So I probably didn't garner as much council support as maybe I could have if I could do it again. But we did a great job at the foundation. And we did what we thought was the most sensible thing, given Horizon was launching in December. It did have a little bit of this platform curb appeal. And if you don't have core devs, you yourself, the foundation team, aren't developers and engineers. The most sensible thing is let's get substreams fully on the network, native on the network, and let's go out and get as many data service operators who would value issuance, who would value decentralized Rails, who would value the brand and the exposure. Let's get them on the network. And we felt like that was a good move for our mandate to do whatever was in the best interest of the network, the best interest of indexers, and to kind of continue to grow this mission. Again, without sort of opening too much today, I'm just staring at the wall, speaking from the hip here, but we met some resistance on the roadmap. And by virtue of that, we had to reopen that discussion again at the council level. And we're currently in the process of validating some of those concerns or invalidating some of those concerns. And we're eager to course correct, and we're eager to get to work. But following that roadmap publication, a couple things happened, and we had to come back to the drawing board a little bit here. So we've been cautious of what we say publicly because, we don't want to cause unnecessary fires. We understand that the industry has evolved. We understand that we're spending a lot of time at the graph, saying a lot of smart things and having a lot of great debates, but we need to spend less time on supply side thinking and think more about demand side interests and users. And I think we can all agree the user demand side of the equation has evolved since the founders of the graph sort of launched this protocol. We're contemplating institutions, we're contemplating AI, and wondering, will that dev inflow ever truly arrive? What will regulation look like? So it's a very multifaceted, ongoing conversation. And I'm almost done here, folks. The roadmap that the foundation published in February represented our best thinking about the most sensible path forward for the graph. We're in the process of reevaluating that at the council level and working with a couple other stakeholders. The foundation, as much as you may be happy to know this or disappointed to know this, cannot act carte blanche. We must act in alignment with the council, and we rely heavily on contributors like Edge and Node. We need to be aligned with Edge and Node. They do so many things at the protocol level that we need to have a good working relationship there as well. So a little backstory there, a little perspective. Definitely not a finality, and certainly not a super high IQ perspective of what the path forward should look like. But the foundation has never abandoned our mandate. We'll do what's in the best interest of the protocol and continue to fight for it. People will never know this, but we've been in plenty of situations over the last year and a half where we could have compromised our mandate and done different things, and we never did, and we never will. And our devotion and our mandate is to the protocol and our ecosystem. And we'll take a lot of the blame for where we're at and how things have gone. But I don't lose a second of sleep over thinking that we ever abandoned our mandate and tried to do something shady. We never have. But this is a complex situation. And I wish I had the answer.
Thanks, Nick. If I may respond to that a little bit, I think I was part of that pushback on the latest roadmap, so I think it's worth it for me to maybe explain a bit more. And I agree the roadmap was sensible with the constraints that the foundation was working with. My perception of that roadmap is that it was too diffuse among many different initiatives, because there's this idea of the platform and the many data services on the platform. And as I've said a few other times in this call, I don't think that's the winning strategy. This doesn't mean the foundation did a bad job. I think you did the most sensible roadmap with the tools you were working with. But that's why we've been discussing over the last few weeks about how we can work together better and how we can maybe produce a more ambitious roadmap and more focused roadmap that is that targets the as Nick said, the evolved new consumers or demand side that we see in the Web3 ecosystem, or beyond Web3, I guess, these days.
Any additional thoughts? I see a few comments here in the chat.
On the topic of substreams, I think an important point should be made here. Again, speaking for myself, it's hard to be in my role because sometimes people are like, "Oh, the foundation said," but it's important, on occasion that people realize, "Oh, Nick said," right? So this is Nick speaking right now. If I can even have that delineation. I agree with criticism about the nature of the way substreams, quote unquote, are on the network. I agree with it. For whatever reason, and I can't speak for the rationale, prior generations decided that what we currently experience in the form of substreams is, quote unquote, on the network. And there's a lot of robust debate. I wasn't in those conversations, so again, I'm not going to overspeak, but as an individual contributor within the graph, I'm not satisfied with the level in which the substreams are on the network. I don't think they sort of operate and work the same way that subgraphs do, right? So I'm not happy with it, and it became a personal mission of mine in my new role to get them on the network. And we were making a tremendous amount of progress, and there are some contractual details here that sort of made it more complex than it needed to be. But shout out to GraphOps and shout out to Streaming Fast, both of whom knew that their contracts would not be renewed, both of whom were being asked to stick around and be contributors to the ecosystem in a new relationship, and both of whom were pushing very, very hard to get substreams natively onto the network. And Where that work ends and sort of what happens next is an open question, just being honest. But I was never satisfied with it. I think indexers should have always been able to participate in the value creation that Streaming Fast and that Substreams product generated. And as of date, I don't think we ever quite got there. But the foundation team, we were pushing incredibly hard on it. And shout out GraphOps and Streaming Fast, who were most recently working to get that done. We're working on that. We can maybe provide an update at some point to the community on that. Of course, a lot of this is dependent on how ongoing conversations with the council and different things go. But I'm with Vince and anybody else who's sort of cynical of how we got here with that particular product and its relationship to the network. And we wanted to fix that sin, if you will. That's my own language, but we inherited that and we wanted to fix that. And maybe we still will.
I guess I'm just trying to get clarity. Is the reason Substream's not on the network due to contractual obligations or infighting, or is it because the devs just didn't do the work?
It's because they never cared about getting it on the network. Like, let's just be honest. Like, they had 4 years and all the funding in the world to do so. They didn't care about doing that. It wasn't their priority.
Okay.
I think the contractual component of this that, and I have to be careful, right? Because contracts are legal things and all that stuff. But when you sign a contract with an entity, you agree to certain stipulations and scope of work. And that contract with Streaming Fast was written in 2022, maybe? I don't know. I'd have to look exactly, but a long time ago, back when I was just a community guy running around here. And so there were factors in the contract that sort of played a little bit of a role. I think Ford's perspective is fair. I think if Streaming Fast were here, and I'm not looking at who's here, so if they are here, they can say, but I think they have a certain perspective. But at the end of the day, and I'll just kind of say this, that's good feedback. But at the end of the day, the foundation should have handled that entirely differently from the beginning and should have gotten those two teams involved, EduNode and Streaming Fast, more aligned on what needed to happen there. And that was a huge mistake. I tried to fix it. We're continuing to work on it, but didn't go as it should have gone. And that was a miss that we tried to fix and continue to try to evaluate.
I would also, I don't exactly agree with Ford's characterization. I think that particularly in the early days of the multi-core dev ecosystem, the bar for what it meant to be on the network was exceedingly high. And we all imagined these services as being fully permissionless, and with fully permissionless supply-side participation came the need for really high integrity dispute mechanisms and data integrity verification and a whole number of additional technical requirements that existed beyond the core data technology. And I think something like Substreams got kind of stuck for a while because even though the core technology was working well and building traction, the engineering effort and path to deliver all of those ancillary components to meet that very high standard of what it meant to be on the network and have full verifiability and so on, kind of held it back for some time. And I would say the kind of most present state is that I linked the Substreams data service repo in the chat. That is a kind of complete manifestation of Substreams on the network, with the caveat that many of those excessively high requirements have been adjusted, right? Like there is the introduction of Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a multi-phase approach there, but basically it is not a kind of fully permissionless supply side system, right? Like supply side actors do need to be permissioned in either by the consumer or by an oracle. This is obviously the same direction that we've moved in for subgraphs and the REO. And I think generally there's been a realization of the need to be a lot more pragmatic about those requirements. And so I don't think it's, yeah, I just want to make that clear. Like, certainly from my perspective, it's not that any of the teams involved just couldn't be bothered to do the work to put it on the network. There were significant engineering challenges that were at the time prerequisites to ship that.
I think this is a bit of a misrepresentation of how those discussions actually went through, because I agree with you that the bar was too high, and I'm glad that we're kind of revisiting and figuring out more pragmatic approaches to how things get on the network. But I think we explicitly provided solutions for those engineering challenges, and they weren't taken. And instead, the focus of the discussion was on the philosophical aspect of what it meant to be on the network, rather than focusing on the technical solutions. We only started talking technical solutions in one of the last offsites, and then we agreed on a path forward, and then it was never executed on. So I do think that, and I don't want to blame any particular people. I think it's part of the way the incentives were set up and the organizational structure was set up. But I don't think it was just because the bar was too high, because we actually provided in meetings like technical designs of how those solutions, how those challenges could be solved, because we solved them for subgraphs to some degree, and we understood how to translate that to substreams, understanding that there were some differences because it's streaming or whatever, but we actually had concrete designs that we shared, and that weren't executed on. So yeah, I think the main thing I want to go back to is kind of the incentives and the structure, because I don't want to blame like any particular developer or any particular team. But yeah, I don't think the discussions were exactly around the technical challenges, but rather about alignment on what it even meant for it to be on the network.
And a lot of those, as I was alluding to, people presently speaking inherited some of that, right? So these were negotiations or discussions that sort of predated some of us coming along and trying to figure out what to do. Streaming Fast is a team that, so over sort of the last year and a half, I've had some very peaceful conversations with people and some very heated conversations with people. And I know I've lost some friendships along the way, and people have kind of come to not like me so much. I want you folks to know I've been in conversations with Streaming Fest and told them directly some of my personal criticisms of their team from a Web3 alignment perspective of what your intentions were and all that stuff. And they've heard me. They've responded professionally, and I would say Streaming Fast was notified, like other core devs, that the core dev funding renewal would not occur. There were occasions where I even welcomed them to leave. So it got heated on a few occasions. I said, well, if you're so unhappy, you guys can take your stuff and leave. And I get it. No one will fault you. Your contract's over. It got kind of dicey on occasion, but they've stuck around. And this is a team that's currently not receiving any funding, who continues to participate in the ecosystem. And so even though I've had my view of that team and others have a view that's maybe even more informed than mine, but been pretty impressed with Streaming Fast continuing to stick around and participate in the ecosystem when an angry little bald guy told them they could leave anytime they wanted some months ago, and they don't have any funding. So it's like I said, these things are so complex, but shout out them to continue to stick around, and like I said, most recently working with GraphOps to figure out a path to the network.
I'm just reading the chat here. Indeed, Chris. Let me see. On that note, any indexes around this call are using or relying on Launchpad charts? Seems like Vince is. Apparently Elipra is as well. Any other thoughts? I want to make sure that we end on a positive note, or by some sort of resolution. Do people feel like they've learned things in this call about things that have happened in the past and how we can navigate in a productive way? I think earlier in the chat, Tomas was saying it's time to move on and stop discussing spilled milk and look ahead and figure out how to make the graph thrive, which I definitely agree on. So, Nick, you want to hop in? I see that you've unmuted.
Yeah, maybe just a parting comment from the foundation, and then I'll mute and be quiet. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Again, if I got anything wrong, or if anybody's like, "Hey, you're a fool," let me talk to you one-on-one. I'll take that call all day, every day. So just reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to people. I just want to say a couple things from where I sit on the bus and in this ecosystem. So, I think these problems are complex, and I think the market has evolved, and I think the industry is also, evolving in parallel. And so what we have here is a decentralized system with a lot of legacy debt trying to navigate in an agile way an industry that has its own set of issues, right, that we can't control, as well as sort of these market evolution of who the ideal persona is. And the gap, or I guess I should say the gulf between servicing a developer or developer team and a Fortune 500 TradFi user is significant. And so when we say, there's multiple user personas, it's not a back a napkin, like, who cares? It's basically the same thing. I mean, these are separated by large distance and how you service those and what their expectations are. So I have a ton of grace for everybody involved, from our indexers all the way up to our council members, everybody who's like, man, this is a complex situation. I don't think this is a graph problem, right? I think this is a problem that a lot of different projects within the industry are trying to navigate. And as I said, a lot of this is industry outside of a lot of things we can control, and other things are things that we can control. I've had the opportunity to sit in a lot of meetings with the different core dev teams, different people on those teams. I've had the opportunity to take feedback and meet with indexers. I fundamentally believe there's a lot of good people working in the graph that have great intentions, and that a lot of sort of the tension that we faced is either attributable to miscommunication, attributable to external forces that are just putting a lot of pressure on different people. There's constraints, from legal constraints to financial constraints, but what it's doing is it's just kind of putting a lot of pressure on good people who all arrived committed to the same vision, and have sort of incentives to stick around and see this thing through. And so I think from the foundation's perspective, I hope we can all continue to have a little grace for each other. The best idea should win. The thing that's in the best service to the ecosystem and the protocol should win. Foundation's doing our best to make sure that that happens. And when we've put an idea forward that seems like it's a second-rate idea, we've quickly stepped aside and said, well, where's the better idea? But all our core dev teams, Pinax, GraphOps, Streaming Fast, Edge and Node. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. So GraphOps, forgive me if I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, but these are good people. They're nice people. They have families, they have pets, they have houses. Everybody's here, showed up years ago trying to do and build something. It's pretty hard right now, but we do need to ask the tough questions, and we need to make some tough decisions. And we need to have a little grace for each other as we shop the best path forward. But if there was a silver bullet, I want to assure you we would have stumbled across that thing with all the discussion we've had over the last year and a half a while ago. But this is a tough set of design challenges. But Foundation's not quitting. Super excited to work on this. We're grateful for the role we have in the ecosystem, and we're still showing up every day. Excited about our mandate and the future of the graph. And we really appreciate everybody, all our indexers and everybody that keeps showing up too. There's a ton of gratitude and love for you as well. So thank you.
Wow. I don't know how I can wrap up any better than that. I think Nick done a fantastic job. If anyone has any final thoughts, scream and interrupt. Otherwise, I will take this opportunity. Oh, for goodness sake! I gotta say the name. Oh, I mean, yeah, I can't see it on the chat. But if you want to post it, feel free to. Thanks, Juan. Jesus Christ, you guys are gonna make me do this. Okay. Was it a MH means V? Jam Shavi? I don't know. I can't even. Okay. Can someone pronounce it? I honestly, this one stumped me. Eve? Eva? No way. No way. No way. That's insane. How is that even Weaver? Oh my gosh, Quiva. Wow. I mean, talk about a name that is spelled completely different from how it's pronounced. Well, that was fun. Now I know how to pronounce it. So if I ever meet a Quiva, I will name. Oh, we're gonna miss. I'm gonna miss this too. I'm gonna miss this too. Yeah, talk about ending on a good note. Exactly. Maybe Pecco's dog can say it. Yeah, that was funny. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for everyone who's joined today, contributed today. It's been an absolute pleasure. No, there will be more IOHs. Slim will be taking over from me and leading the charge. But yeah, this will be my last one as a host. I'll definitely join as a participant. But yeah, thank you very much to every single one of you for joining today and throughout all of the IOHs that you guys have joined. It's been my absolute pleasure to host these. It's been a highlight of my week. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to join, but more as a participant. And I wish you guys all a fantastic rest of your day and rest of your week. And I will see you guys as a participant next week for IOH. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day and see you very soon. Thank you.